No monarch in history has reigned longer, travelled further, or met so many of the world's people as the Queen.
Turn around the other way, because that's where the camera is.
For 7 decades, the Queen has crisscrossed the globe by land, sea and air.
And then I flew home by Concorde, which was the only way I could get home in time to open Parliament in London.
Bringing together what she calls her family of nations, the Commonwealth. And now the Queen is passing the baton to the younger generations.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
How are you?
Welcome.
In this historic year, we've enjoyed privileged access to the Queen.
I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
And all her family too.
So nice to see it again. This is my first time seeing the veil like this.
And what did it feel like putting it on?
It was a pretty magical day.
I bet it was. It was
Yeah, really special.
We'll see them welcoming the world at home.
Have you bumped into the Queen yet? Not yet. If you suddenly bump into her in the corridor, don't panic. I know you will. We all do.
And flying the flag abroad.
A lot of ladies wearing your creation.
Yes.
With access to the Queen's private home movies, we've seen how she's inspired one generation.
What do you say when you walk up to a complete stranger? So you learn by experience, but...
And encourage the next.
You're making me blush. Stop.
And we've captured the excitement as a new Commonwealth journey begins.
53 countries as well, my goodness. It'll keep us busy.
This is the British royal family on the global stage. And the story of how our Queen has come to be seen by millions as Queen of the world. Buckingham Palace, Royal Headquarters. All is quiet. For in the Regency room, the Queen is preparing to record her annual Christmas message.
It's very low. Today we celebrate Christmas, which itself is sometimes described as a festival of the home. Families travel long distances to be together.
The Queen's message won't just be broadcast in Britain. It can be heard across the Commonwealth by 2.4 billion people in 6 continents, a third of the world's population.
So really, the idea of home reaching...
But today, it's the local wildlife which is tuning in.
Excuse me, is it possible I can just ask, because there was some bird noises outside, is it possible just to redo it from the top?
From the top of the second page.
From the very start? From the very start.
You want the whole thing again?
If possible, I know it's... Thank you.
In 2018, I will open my home to a different type of family. The leaders of the 52 nations of the Commonwealth, as they gather in the UK for a summit. The Commonwealth has an inspiring way of bringing people together.
Should we down there?
At the start of the Queen's reign, there were 8 countries in the Commonwealth. With Gambia rejoining this year, there are now 53.
There are generations in the Commonwealth who've never known anybody else as their kind of head of state. That's quite a remarkable position to be in.
Today, the Queen has invited a group of young professionals from the Caribbean to join the royal household. They're rising stars in the hospitality industry and have been selected for the work placement of a lifetime. 6 weeks training with the household staff at Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle.
Our Caribbean scholars are 8 fabulous, fabulous young people. This very much was an attempt to reach out and see what more we can do to involve the Caribbean realms, particularly in the royal household. So it's very, very special.
Claudine Jeffrey has come from the Commonwealth island of Antigua.
It's a fun place to work. I say it's an adventure every day because every day there's always something different. You never find that you're doing the same thing, so that's really amazing because I love a challenge and I don't like to be bored. I've followed the Queen for a while, and I remember watching her on TV, and she was given a scholarship to a young man from my country, and I was like, wow, I wonder if I'm ever going to get that opportunity, and then, you know, to find myself here in Buckingham Palace, it's, you know, beyond my wildest imaginations.
They are the embodiment, a microcosm of something much, much bigger. And of course, the Queen, being the head of the Commonwealth, is something she cares passionately about.
Today, Claudine and her colleagues are receiving some tips on royal etiquette.
What you do, if you're a girl, a woman, you curtsy, which is just like that. Oh, no, yes. I thought for a minute, Jared had, because I tend to start doing this, you know, if I'm not careful. So Seema, that's quite right. And if you're a chap, it's just chin on chest, like that, chin on chest. No, Jared, no.
No, Bobbin.
None of this. None of that. So you're happy?
The trainees are now ready for their first royal encounter.
Hello, sir. Just going to invite Your Highness. First, I'd like to present Claudine Jeffrey from Antigua and Barbuda.
The Queen has appointed Prince Harry as her Commonwealth Youth Ambassador. With his new wife, the Duchess of Sussex, he's come to Commonwealth HQ in London.
Just got here, so I have the same question.
So what are you going to be focusing on this week?
They're here to meet young people from around the Commonwealth.
Have you all just connected for the first time? Yes.
60% of the Commonwealth's 2.4 billion citizens are under 30.
There's a lot of pressure on him in his role, being the youngest child, which I actually am as well. I understand there's always kind of that pressure that comes from being the youngest child. People still look at you and you have to do something, and I think it's amazing how he's taken on that responsibility.
Meghan Markle is the daughter of a black woman, and she's entered the royal family. That gives me pride. She is going to become a symbol of hope and encouragement to many young women across the Commonwealth. And I'm inspired. I mean, there's some serious movement that's taking place in this country, and she's a big part of it, I believe.
The Duchess of Sussex has already made a powerfully symbolic gesture. On the day of her wedding, and to the surprise of her husband-to-be, she had Commonwealth flowers woven into the fabric of her veil. Today, Buckingham Palace has just received a special delivery. Here in the South Drawing Room, the most famous dress in the world is being unwrapped and arranged for display by conservators from the Royal Collection.
It's a very privileged position to be able to handle and look after these objects with my team. It's fairly unique as well, I would say.
You know, conservation is one of those jobs in which you're sort of suddenly called upon to do extraordinary things. And it's always an adventure, especially when it's a dress as beautiful as this.
Never before has it been seen in such intimate detail. The dress and veil will be the star attractions in a new royal exhibition.
Hopefully it'll bring back some wonderful memories.
But before all this goes on public display, a special reunion is about to take place.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Fantastic.
Is it as beautiful as you remember?
My goodness, it's amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely astonishing. All the embroidery all the way around. And the way it compares to your simple design on the dress as well.
Thank you. Has it been fun working on this?
So much fun. It's just been a dream, actually.
Oh, great.
Quite exciting. I think probably every girl's dream, but...
It's nice to see it again. It's beautiful.
The silk veil is 16 feet long, and the elaborate floral decoration took 500 hours to embroider. Each flower represents one of the 53 nations of the Commonwealth.
I'm sure they told you the thinking behind, for me, including some sort of representation of all 53 of the Commonwealth countries, which was key. And I'd originally said to Claire Waite-Keller, the designer, how can we incorporate that? Would it be the state flower, country flower of each place? And it was her idea to do wildflowers, which I think ended up being a really beautiful way to embody the feeling of it.
Particularly, I think the way they've worked up in 3 dimensions, and you've got these beautiful embroidered threads up. Yeah, the Australian wattle like that.
And no specific flower repeats itself. I know that was part of how they had put everything together, but I hope when people come, they can find their flower from their
Spend
country.
hours looking at it, I'm sure.
It's true, because you have Australia, India, I mean, there's so many different beautiful features there. But I think also with Harry's role as youth ambassador for the Commonwealth was so important for us to have the spirit of inclusivity in our wedding.
It's a very touching gesture, I think, to have them with you. It was a day, an important day for all those countries.
I stuck in a couple flowers that were important to me as well, personally, but there is a California poppy in there, which has nothing to do with the Commonwealth, but
has something to do with you, though.
Yes, so that it's ours, right? It really feels
very
like
much
it's
so.
all
And the
important to us.
composition feels very natural, which I think is important.
Oh, thank you. Yes, well, that was all their craftsmanship. They did a beautiful job. And you see how some of it's raised as well.
Yeah.
The applique that she put on there, so it has some dimension. It was really special because when it caught the light, you could see it was such fine detail, but because of how much texture was in it, it really...
How long did you spend organising this composition with Claire? Was it very much kind of...
Do you know, we had 2 or 3 meetings talking about sketches and different ideas of how this could really come to life. We knew we wanted it to be very delicate, but then after that point, I just said I trust her implicitly with what she did, and I didn't see it really until the morning of. So this is my first time seeing the veil like this.
And what did it feel like putting it on and wearing it?
It's a pretty magical day.
I bet it was. It was very
really
special.
It is Claire Waite-Keller for Givenchy, an exquisitely cut, minimal and traditional dress with a splendid veil.
At the age of just 21, the young princess had made a promise.
If we all go forward together with an unwavering faith, a high courage and a quiet heart, we shall be able to make of this ancient Commonwealth, which we all love so dearly, an even grander thing.
Just months after her coronation, the Queen left her young family behind to set out on an epic Commonwealth tour.
Her Majesty came to land in Jamaica. From the winter of faraway England, she flew in over the blue Caribbean.
With Prince Philip at her side, the Queen travelled 40,000 miles in 6 months. Circling the globe, this extraordinary trip is still the single longest journey ever undertaken by a reigning monarch.
Now she was the Queen of all Australia, magnificent, her poise and dignity and splendor. This was indeed a moment in the history of the British Commonwealth.
the history of the Commonwealth and the connections, you find it everywhere. It is a most extraordinary group of countries. And the Queen's first real overseas trip was, of course, designed to introduce herself and my father to the Commonwealth.
She was a young woman leader at a time in history when there weren't any young women leading. Her skill was so profound that many people forgot that she was a young woman. She was just the Queen. And if you ask anyone in the world who is the Queen, there is actually only one, and that's Queen Elizabeth II.
For the past 4 weeks, Buckingham Palace has been home to a group of young professionals from the Caribbean.
Lift it with one hand.
They've been selected for an exclusive training scheme with the royal household. Today, a group of them are cooking in the royal kitchens.
We need to cut the smoked salmon out to go on the lemon bellini. We need to make the watercress panna cotta.
Jared is a chef from the Bahamas. He's preparing his favorite Caribbean dish as a treat for the household staff.
I don't think my grandma, when she taught me how to make this rice, that she ever thought that I'd be serving it in Buckingham Palace. So I'm quite proud of that. Every day this week, we the Caribbean scholars, we're going to feature 1 or 2 meal dishes from the Caribbean to give them a little idea of what we eat at home and give them that little experience as well.
Delicious.
It's a change from, I guess, what they're used to, from fish and chips.
It's been terrific to have the scholars here. A number of the Caribbean dishes were particularly well received. The callaloo soup was an absolute sensation, and I had email after email telling me that it must now feature more regularly.
With their time in the royal household coming to a close, they are finally getting to meet the boss.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling quite fine, actually.
They say dreams do come true, so here we are. I'm living and I'm gonna meet the Queen in a few minutes, so. So this is my lucky charm, and it's red. I got it for my birthday because red is my favorite color, and my coworkers surprised me with this red charm. So I wear it wherever I go because I feel like it brings me great blessings upon my way. Oh, she's here.
Now our first Commonwealth scholars is Claudine Jeffrey from Antigua.
Antigua?
Yes, ma'am, from Antigua and Barbuda.
All right. So what are you doing at home? You're in a
I am in housekeeping, yes. I work at Chimby Bay Resort. I am their housekeeping residential supervisor. So it was really amazing. I was not nervous, and it was really a proud moment that I was able to talk about my country and my resort, and, you know, as well as to incorporate what I've been doing here. So it's a humble experience, like I said, and it's truly an honor to finally meet Her Majesty the Queen of England. It's a dream come true.
Part-time at the Sandy Lane Resort.
Do you?
In the eyes of the world, there's no one quite like the Queen. She's the first sovereign to circumnavigate the world. It's an achievement that owes much to one of the most famous ships in maritime history, the royal yacht Britannia.
Zanzibar. The royal yacht has arrived.
This is Antarctica, the cold underside of the world.
During her service, Britannia would sail more than 1 million miles on royal duty. Like the Commonwealth itself, Britannia began with the Queen's father.
Over the Mother of Parliaments, high over Big Ben, the flag is low as the news spreads.
The royal yacht was commissioned for King George VI in 1952, but he never lived to see it. One of the young Queen's first duties was to launch the new ship. This colour film has never been seen before. It was discovered by Robin, Countess of Onslow, who had a special role that day.
Everyone was so excited. Oops, there I come. All I was required to do was to walk up and curtsy and present her with the flowers. But she definitely had an aura of sadness, and it was picked up in the press, I think, that she looked slightly forlorn and a slight figure. Yeah, she was young. She was, what, 26? She just lost her father and had a tremendous burden upon her as a result.
I name this ship Britannia. I wish success to her and to all who sail in her.
When the Queen said, "I named this ship," none of us knew what the name was going to be in the crowd, and the cheer was such that we didn't hear Britannia. And some had thought it was going to be called Princess Anne, some had thought it was going to be called the Royal Prince, but Britannia was a very popular name, and the word very quickly spread around. And the excitement in the crowd was enormous. The noise when she got into the water. All the ships in the Clyde were tooting their horns, and the cheering went on for a very long time indeed. The noise was indescribable to me as a 15-year-old.
A floating palace, a travelling embassy. For the royal family, Britannia would become a home away from home. But the Queen was not the first of her family to sail in Britannia.
An exciting adventure begins for Britain's Prince Charles and Princess Anne.
Very good memories, that trip.
The royal children had been apart from their parents for 6 months, while the Queen and Prince Philip had been on their Commonwealth tour.
It's the first time the young prince and princess have embarked on a real ship.
They were soon to be reunited for the final leg of the journey.
The journey out and the sea nannies that we had to stop us from launching ourselves over the side were very, very good memories.
Royal yachtsman Ellis Norrell was there on the children's maiden voyage.
The children, they loved it. They came down to our mess deck for tea. They wanted to know how lads got into their hammocks. Charles shook this lad who'd been asleep, and he picked him up. "Don't you ever do that again." He picked him up by the scruff of the neck. He said, "Don't you do that again or you'll never live to be king."
The Queen was an early home movie enthusiast. This cine film is from the royal family's private archives.
We were kept very busy. There were lots of things to do. All sorts of places to go and things, and a lot of scrubbing and polishing. That was always part of our role. And I think Britannia by then had seemed like home, so we were fine, because we knew where we were. It was the Queen and the Duke who didn't, it took a little while to settle in.
On board Britannia, the Queen could host world leaders and dignitaries wherever she went.
And then I flew home by Concorde, which was the only way I could get home in time to open Parliament in London.
Very nice to see you.
And the royal yachtsman made sure things ran smoothly.
sometimes if they were rushing, either they had to go ashore or there was the next engagement. If the Queen had finished, you had to clear the place away regardless of whether they finished or not. Sorry, it's got to go.
Day to day, obviously a menu used to go to the Queen. She would get it normally at the breakfast, and then she'd cross out if she didn't want something and then write in herself what she wanted. And we used to normally get it back about 9:30, then it'd be a frantic running round everywhere. She's changed the menu.
And he's downstairs trying to find the food.
Trying to find all the food downstairs.
Behind those two doors were the screening of a cinema, and the screen would come down here. She didn't like cowboy films, so they were quite modern movies at the time.
I remember being responsible for bringing Dr. No on board, which I think was one of the great Sean Connery and Ursula Andress films. Behind the glass door there, the Rolls Royce. In the very early days, it was a huge problem getting it out of here, as you could see.
But one of Britannia's great strengths was her draft, her depth below the waterline. Her designers had reduced it so she could enter shallow ports. Now the Queen could reach the remotest parts of the Commonwealth that had never enjoyed a royal visit before.
The Royal Yacht went to some really lovely places. Galapagos, Pitcairn, Easter Island, places that off the tourist track.
Anywhere in the Pacific Islands.
Tahiti, and I don't know if you've heard of a place called Palmerston Islands.
So Rarotonga, Gilbert and Ellis Islands, Easter Islands, the Marshall Islands, New Caledonia, Papua New Guinea. They're all fantastic places. Places when I joined the Navy I never thought I'd ever get to.
Wherever Britannia went, she made a big impression.
Sierra Leone stands expectant as the Royal Yacht Britannia sails up the estuary to Freetown.
She didn't come by plane, did she? Obviously, she came in the ship.
Fashion designer Euphemia Sidney Davis is originally from Sierra Leone. Tonight she's been invited to Buckingham Palace. But first, her mother Irene is sharing her memories of the Queen's visit.
Oh, yeah, there she is.
The royal progress enthusiastically cheered all along the route.
We were in that crowd. We were given flags and we were told to line the streets. It was like she was coming from far away because we were in Freetown, never traveled before, and somebody was coming all the way from England. So I remember we had to learn some songs for the Queen's visit. I don't know if you want me to sing that. Yes, I remember, welcome to our glorious Queen. Welcome to Queen Elizabeth. Queen fine, beauty shine. Look where Prince Philip correct. In other words, we're saying the Queen welcome. The Queen is so beautiful. And as for Prince Philip, he is spotless, physically spotless. That was the song. And some of us, we are hoping when we go older, we'll have somebody as good looking as Prince Philip. You know, you'll get up there, you'll get up there. Yeah, yes, yeah. The war started and I saw no future for her, and so I decided I must get out of here. I didn't see any future, so we left.
Together they travelled through 3 Commonwealth countries before seeking refuge in Britain.
Back home we have the saying, we want our children to go higher than us. So for me, she's gone higher.
Tonight, the Queen has opened up Buckingham Palace for a Commonwealth fashion show.
Well, it was lovely to see the palace looking slightly different because we had these fantastic mannequins dressed in these extraordinary different styles.
Euphemia has been selected to take part. For the first time, she'll showcase her work alongside some of the biggest names in fashion.
I can't breathe. There's something.
I'm representing Sierra Leone, and I wanted to be authentic to Sierra Leone and put something out there that is made in Sierra Leone. I am thrilled. And it's here in Buckingham Palace.
The Queen has asked the younger generation to welcome the fashion world to the palace.
I hope they like what we've done.
With so many fabulous creations on display, Euphemia hopes her work will catch the royal eye and the attention of the fashion world too.
It's so fine. It is gorgeous. Oh, fantastic. This is my piece.
Vogue's Anna Wintour looks impressed.
I am honored to meet you.
I'm honored to meet you as well, by the way.
I follow you on Instagram.
You do?
And so does Savile Row designer Oswald Boateng.
I am incredibly proud to represent Sierra Leone. Living as a young refugee, I always knew that I wanted to do something for my nation. And it doesn't get bigger than this. It really doesn't. Very nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Wow. Congratulations. Thank you so much. You look fabulous. I made it. I finished it today an hour before we got the taxi. I think she liked it. I think she did. Because she took her time and she wanted to know how the process was done and she wanted to know how long it takes to weave, and amazing. What an honor. Thank you. Well done.
The Commonwealth includes nations great and small, rich and poor, with one symbolic head holding it together. It's a family of nations, with a family at its heart.
Australia, India, I mean, there's so many different beautiful features there. And no specific flower repeats itself. The Australian wattle, and then a Papua New Guinea orchid.
There were just 8 members when the Queen came to the throne, including the largest of them all.
So there's Canada. Yeah. The bunchberries from Canada.
Nowhere outside Britain has enjoyed as many royal visits as Canada. The Queen has toured Canada 25 times. She's visited every province and every territory. And in 1970, it was here that she introduced her children to the ways of a royal tour.
For one stage of the journey across the frozen Arctic, Prince Charles took the controls.
Prince Charles was 21 when he and Princess Anne accompanied the Queen and Prince Philip to Canada.
We always assumed that they weren't cheering us. Number one. And you were not expected to be in the front line in that sense. That this was, in theory, back up and help spread the load, take up some of the slack. And because of those very issues that there were so many people to try and meet. But for us, it was, learning how to do that. And we learned quite quickly. What do you say when you walk up to a complete stranger? So you learn by experience, but it was hard work, much harder than you think. I suppose Canada was a lot of travelling too.
It's the 150th anniversary of Canada's Confederation. On behalf of the Queen, Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall have come to Ottawa for the celebrations.
Attention!
Rideau Hall is the royal family's official residence in Canada.
After a long day of traveling, there's nothing better than going into a bed that doesn't feel like a hotel bed. And that's what you're trying to do, is to make it feel like they're in their own bedroom. And they are.
Master of the household, Christine, is responsible for overseeing every aspect of the visit.
There are special sheets that are used for members of the royal family, and they are kept aside and brought out on only those special occasions when they're here. It takes over an hour to iron one sheet, correct? Yeah.
The official welcome needs rehearsing, and Christine makes sure she has a contingency plan. Or three.
But perhaps what we could do to be really nice, because it's Canada Day, have His Excellency here, His Royal Highness, Her Royal Highness, and Her Excellency. So we show this welcoming element. Or, let's just think this through together.
Her Excellency and the Governor General?
Yes, because they need to be on the right side for the doors. Excellent point. So that's plan A.
But what if it's raining?
So plan B basically is, people are all inside, we bring them out at the last moment, we do all of this part, then we invite the Gigi to speak. After the speech, they open the door, the band is inside, the doors open, musical fanfare, fantastic.
And if the rain is torrential?
If it's plan C, it will be completely in the ballroom, and perhaps we should go see that together.
So if it's pouring?
If it's like this morning, then we would do the reverse. Any questions?
The ceremonial guard receives the word. The Prince and the Duchess have arrived. The weather holds, and Christine's Plan A rolls smoothly into action. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is hosting the festivities.
I was lucky to have grown up while my father was Prime Minister, and therefore had a few occasions to meet the Queen and the members of the royal family while I was just a kid. There's hundreds of thousands of people already there. I think having the Royals as part of Canada 150 is a recognition of the past. There is a need for continuity and service, and that sort of is something that, for me, the royal family embodies.
Okay, back up, please, back up.
The walkabout has become an essential part of a royal tour, a chance to meet the Canadian people. On earlier tours, the public were lucky to get a fleeting glimpse of the royal family as they drove by. Then in the 1970s, the Queen decided to shake things up. She wanted to say hello to the crowds, and the walkabout was born.
And we never shook hands. The theory was that you couldn't shake hands with everybody, so don't start. So I kind of stick with that, but I notice others don't. It's not for me to say that it's wrong, but I think the initial concept was that it was patently absurd to start shaking hands. And it seems to me that it's become a shaking hands exercise rather than a walkabout, if you see what I mean. So that it has changed. I'm glad I'm not starting now, because at least you had people to talk to. Now you don't really. Phones are bad enough, but the iPads, you can't even see their heads. No idea who you're talking to. And I do get slightly, I either don't bother or just say, if you want to ask, meet somebody, I suggest you put that down. It is weird, and as people don't believe that they've experienced the event unless they've taken a photograph. And usually when you're standing immediately in front of them.
Bon fête, Canada. Happy birthday, Canada.
The Prince's tour is coming to a close. On board their Canadian Air Force jet, the pilots prepare to take the royal couple back to London.
So this flag is the Prince's Royal Standard, and so what we do is right before the Prince arrives, Para here will crack his window.
I'm just going to crack it like that. It's going to come back a little bit.
I have a little cup holder down there that I stick the end into, and then I basically, hold it out the window. It's kind of a little special part of the trip. Really.
As one royal tour ends, another is never far away. At Buckingham Palace, the newest member of the royal family is looking ahead to her very first Commonwealth tour. As her dress and veil go on public display, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will head out on tour to Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific.
And we're going to Australia so soon for our tour, so exciting. Hopefully.
Yeah, the Australian
wattle. Yeah. When people come, they can find their flower from their country.
Spend hours looking at it, I'm sure.
It's true, because you have Australia, India, I mean, there's so many different beautiful features there, but it's such an exciting time for us, especially with Harry's role as youth ambassador for the Commonwealth and the travel that we intend to do work specifically in all those different territories, which is why it was so important to have some sort of example of that present with us on the day. 53 countries as well, my goodness. It'll keep us busy.
"65 years after embarking on her epic Commonwealth tour, the Queen is passing the baton to a new generation.